Oh, Paul Cutts again, sorry. I've got very mixed feelings about developing new space, specifically for arts and culture, partly because of the, as this lady here said, it's the actual cost of maintaining that space. There are also, fixed spaces are very inflexible. Once you've built it, it's there. And we haven't yet found a good solution to making spaces more flexible. They tend to hemorrhage a lot of money in terms of maintenance, and which is money that could be reinvested into actually supporting the art itself. So in terms of whether we need more spaces, I think certainly from my perspective, the answer is absolutely not. We have some fantastic spaces which could be used for cultural activity. We just need to rethink some of the aspects of licensing, perhaps, how we enable those spaces to be used more responsively and more quickly in terms of permissions to do site-specific work, to operate as temporary theatre or cultural spaces, depending on the sort of activities and the spaces that they are. So, for instance, creating a temporary chamber music venue in an old warehouse, creating a theatre performance space in what was a store, creating a temporary ceramics gallery in what was now a closed shoe shop. And I think those are really what you want to look. You don't want to be creating new spaces that are going to cost lots and lots of money to maintain, and which are completely inflexible. You want to look at the spaces that you've got and use them in different ways.
Charlotte Ferguson, we get at least one call a week from artists or arts organisations who want to use spaces in the ways that Paul has just described. And one of the biggest barriers to it is the planning use class thing. I think when it's going to be an exhibition that's selling work, it's okay because it can be A1 or A1.
Yeah.
But if it's anything more with a bit of performance in it or something like a more interactive installation, that's when I think they need to apply for planning permission. And sometimes by the time they've gone through that, the opportunity to use this empty space has disappeared and then a permanent person has begun to occupy it.
Temporary licenses.
Yeah.
I do think that's a fundamental problem from a planning perspective, because there's not a way of sort of circumventing the legal requirements for planning permission. So I appreciate that's an issue.
We have about 50 school halls, most of which have flexible seating, lighting and all that sort of thing, and which are largely, almost entirely empty in the evening and on school holidays and weekends and so on, which is when they might be desirable for performances. They used to be heavily used when the adult education was a really big, thriving thing in London. They used to be heavily used for sort of concerts and rehearsals and that sort of thing. Nearby residents have got used to those buildings being empty in the evening, and no doubt there will be problems if one were to try to increase the activities in them. But 'twas not ever thus. They used to be well used, and they are nowadays. I mean, if you think of the spaces that are being created in the new academies and building schools for the future and so on, they are there for performance, and the funding needs to go into the performers.
Very helpful, thank you.
Any further comments on that? Okay, thank you. That was very interesting.